call this the framed event. It's about our sister, Dr. Aafia Siddiqui. My name is Abdul Azim. I'm part of the men's committee here at VRSC. I have the honor today of introducing our panel, our distinguished guests, and inshallah together we will learn something today. Jazakumullahu khairan to all of you for taking time tonight on a Friday evening to come and spend time here to learn about what is going on in our sister's life and how we can help her. We're all here for different reasons. Some of us want to learn something, some of us are already familiar with the case, and we want to know what to do next. Inshallah, all of those questions will be answered tonight. The thing that I want to just emphasize to all of you before we get started is at the end of this event, inshallah in the back there, I'm going to ask all of you to quiet down, no talking inshallah. Right. At the end of this event, I want all of you to leave with a couple of things. Number one, a deep conviction about the injustice that's happening here. Like, we all need to have a deep conviction about that. So that's number one. And number two, after you hear the stories that will be relayed today, after you hear the narrative about what's happened here, every single one of us should feel compelled to do something about our sister. So at the end of this event, those are the two things I want you to look out for. It might be a sentence somebody says, it might be something that our speaker said, it might be something that your brother says right next to you or your sister says right next to you. But it should motivate you to do something, inshallah. That's the goal of the event today. Okay, with that, I'm honored to introduce our distinguished guest. I will start by saying Dr. Yasir is running a little bit late, so he'll be here at 8:30 in about 20 minutes. And you will see that originally we had 4 speakers planned for today, but we only have 3 here. Dr. Aafia Siddiqui, who is the sister of our dear sister Aafia, she was unfortunately denied the opportunity to come here today. She was denied the visa, and inshallah, Clive or Dr. Asif can talk a little bit more about that. But we, inshallah, will have an opportunity to see her sometime in the future. That's it. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Clive first. We're going to go through Clive and then Dr. Asif and then inshallah Dr. Yasir. We'll come back to Clive yourself at the end to kind of wrap up. Clive Stafford Smith is a lawyer, JD, OBE, is a dual UK-US national. He's the founder and director of the Justice League, a non-profit training center focused on fostering next generation of human rights advocates. He previously founded and directed the legal action charity Reprieve, 1999 in London. Since 1984, he has helped to represent over 400 people facing execution in the United States and elsewhere. He also brought the first challenge to Guantanamo Bay, where he has secured the release of 85 detainees and continues to assist the remaining 30. In all 5 of the cases he has helped bring to the US Supreme Court, the petitioner has prevailed. He has recently taken on the case of Dr. Aafia Siddiqui, the woman who has most suffered from the US rendition to torture program, abducted with her 3 children. Clive has published a number of books, including Bad Men, describing his work in Guantanamo, Injustice on the capital case of Chris Maharaj, both of which were shortlisted for a World Prize, and most recently, The Far Side of the Moon, deconstructing the parallel lives of his father and a client, Larry Lonkar, both of whom were labeled bipolar. While continuing his litigation practice, Clive teaches part-time at Bristol Law School and Goldsmiths, as well as running a summer program for 35 students in Dorset, his home. He has received all kinds of awards in recognition of his work, including an OBE by Queen Elizabeth for services to humanity in 2000, and the Gandhi Peace Award in 2005, and 8 honorary doctorates from a range of universities. He has been a member of the Louisiana State Bar since 1984. He lives in Dorset, UK with his family. We are honored and privileged to have him here and to share his story and how he came across this case and the story of Dr. Aafia. That said, before I invite Clive over here, Al Jazeera is here tonight, and they will be panning across the crowd. If you do not want to be in the picture, then you can move into the MPH room for the brothers, and for the sisters, if you move behind either one of those doors, behind the sides of the room, you will not be a part of the pan that the Al Jazeera video will do. With that, Clive, you'll be honored.
can I sit down here? It's been a long, I'm going to. Oh no, I can't even see you guys over there. Okay, good evening, and thank you so much for inviting me here. Let me first tell you a couple of things. I spent 4 hours with Aafia today, and I told her I was coming to see you lot, and she's very grateful for you being here. On the other hand, as you said, with it comes an obligation to do something, and we're going to talk about that. I think I've locked the doors at the back now. You can't leave until you've signed in blood what you're going to do to help Aafia. Only kidding. Now, also, I just need to send a message from Fauzia. If anyone here is ever in trouble, you got to have Aafia Siddiqui as your sister. She is one of the most remarkable people I've ever met, too. And she's fought for 21 years for her sister. During that time, she's had a bag put over her head, and she's been taken into custody by the ISI 3 times. They've dumped dead bodies outside the house, and they've threatened her in all sorts of different ways. But she still carries on doing it. And for the first time in 20 years, I got her a visa, a B1, B2 visa, to come here last year to see her sister. Hadn't seen her for 20 years. A very emotional moment down in this awful place, Carswell. And we were in that room while they sang nursery songs together. It was very sweet. But this time, forgive me for saying this, but I've got to say the Pakistan government is utterly incompetent. It makes many other governments, I don't know about the US, seem absolutely competent. And so they insisted on her not coming on her B1, B2 visa, but applying for an A2 visa, and they didn't do it until much too late. And the American government denied it, so she couldn't come, which is shocking. And the poor woman was really beaten down by that because she so wanted to be here for her sister. So I'm going to bring her in January the 11th. I'm going to go to Doha and fly with her into Washington on her B1, B2 visa, because I'm what my good friend here knows what an OPWM means. It means I'm an old privileged white male, right? And that's the only reason to be an OPWM is if you can use it for good. And I'll get Fauzia in January, and we'll spend another week in Washington working on her sister's case before we come down here. And I hope on that weekend of January, I think the 17th, 18th, 19th, that you'll invite her here and hear from her, because you really need to hear from her. Now, let me tell you the story of Aafia. Many of you know it, but I bet you don't know it as well as I do. Fauzia bullied me into taking the case. I was in Pakistan about 2 years ago, and I just got the last 3 Pakistanis out of Guantanamo. That was Saifullah Paracha and the Rabbani brothers. And Fauzia collared me at a weak moment. I thought, oh, I just got rid of 3 clients, so now I can take on something else. And so she coerced me into taking Aafia's case. And I was coming here to Texas on a death penalty case. And so I couldn't not go and see Aafia when she asked me. So I went to see her in Carswell in January of last year. And when you meet the poor woman, you just can't not take the case. Obviously, I did. And I've done 87 now, actually, Guantanamo cases. I never thought, as an American citizen, I know I put on a British accent, but I really am American. It's a big advantage having a British accent, because in Georgia, they think someone with a British accent is twice as smart as they are. We British know that's not true. We're 3 times. No, I'm sorry. Anyway, I went to see Aafia, and it's just shocking. And over the years, because my mother told me that my job as a old privileged, well, then I was a young privileged white male, was to help. No, you can laugh all you like. Don't let him shush you. You can do whatever you want. You can heckle as well if you want to. I don't care. My mother told me that my job was to look around the world for the people who are most hated and get between them and the ones doing the hatred, which is why I came to this country age 19 to put an end to the death penalty, because I've had to go to the execution chamber 6 times and be there as the friend of someone being executed. And there's no moment like that when the government has decided to go out and kill someone on some bizarre ritualistic effort to make a sacrifice to some mythological god of deterrence. So I was always doing that. But then when Guantanamo came along, it was just shocking. You know, we were replacing the young black men who we decided we hated with bearded Muslim men, right? And, you know, when that happened, I thought, my goodness, this is ridiculous. And you know, we need to sue this guy, George Bush. And what could be more fun than suing George Bush? And I'll say one thing for the American system. As a lawyer in America, I have great power. I've sued the president 88 times, and I've only lost once. And that's not because I'm so great. That's because we have a constitution that we can enforce. And I'm really bitter about the case I lost, and I'm going to turn that around. But it gives you really an opportunity to do a lot of good. So with Guantanamo, we had all of these things. It never occurred to me that I was going to talk to people who our American government was in the process of torturing. I mean, it's just shocking. You know, what we're doing this in the 21st century for is beyond me. But for all of those things, I've represented people in Guantanamo. I spent 3 days with a guy called Binyam Mohammed, who is from Britain, and he described to me being taken to Morocco and having a razor blade taken to his genitals every 2 weeks for a year and a half. Can you imagine? And I came out of those 3 days with post-traumatic stress disorder, so you can only imagine what he was like. All of these things were truly, truly shocking and so mad. But none of them were as bad as what's happened to Aafia Siddiqui. And when I first met her here, she's, the poor woman. And she described some of what she said had happened. And since then, I've spent the last almost 2 years investigating. I've been to Afghanistan 4 times, and Pakistan, and all around. And I'm going to tell you exactly what happened and how we can prove it. And because I know probably the CIA will watch this in due course, I hope you're making a recording of it. I just want to threaten you people a teeny bit with what I know, because this is how we're going to get Aafia out of prison. Because what's always happened in Guantanamo Bay is it's not the legal system that gets people out, it's your power and what we learn. And it's revealing the truth to the world. And I'm going to tell you the truth. So Aafia, when she had a terribly abusive husband called Amjad Khan. Honestly, he is never going to make it into the good husband books. And he was very abusive. I've noticed again today the scar on Aafia's face, just here, where he threw a bottle of formula at her across the room, and she had to go to hospital to get it all fixed up. This guy was the guy who originally got Aafia in trouble and had started making up stories about her because actually he was in trouble. He had bought some night vision goggles and bulletproof jacket and received some money, $70,000 from Saudi Arabia in 2002. And the FBI went by the house and talked to him and talked to Aafia, and he admitted it was his. And it is astounding, and you'll know it's astounding, that he wasn't taken into custody and sent off down to Guantanamo right then and there. But he remained on the suspects list for quite a long time. And then he got into a bitter divorce with Aafia. And as you well know, hell hath no fury as a husband scorned. And he had pushed Aafia's father when they were having an argument, and when her father was saying she should divorce him, he pushed her. He pushed him, the father, and who fell over and had a heart attack and died. And anyway, Aafia eventually had the good sense to divorce him. But Amjad was the one who was telling the authorities that she was the bad person, not him. I mean, it's just shocking. And you know what? The thing that really gets me about that guy is when her children were kidnapped, this father didn't lift a finger to try to get them back. One of the kids was his daughter, 3 years old, called Mariam. Didn't do anything to get Mariam back. He just went and married someone else, had another daughter, and called her Mariam. I mean, it's just unbelievable, this guy. Anyway, so on March the 18th, 2003, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who you may have heard of, he's the guy that we're representing in Guantanamo, who's charged with actually doing 9/11. He was in the middle of being waterboarded. And on about the middle of the 180 times he was waterboarded, they showed him a picture book that had a bunch of Muslim men and one Muslim woman in it. And that one Muslim woman was Aafia, and for various stupid reasons, including what Amjad had done. Now, I've been told this by several people, and obviously I have access to Khalid Sheikh Mohammed in Guantanamo too, that these guys pointed the finger at Aafia, not because they knew her, they didn't know who she was, they pointed the finger at her because she was the only woman, and in their own chauvinist little way, they didn't think the Americans were ever going to do anything to a woman. That was the 18th of March 2003. Well, the 30th of March 2003, the CIA paid $55,000 to Pervez Musharraf and his men to kidnap Aafia so that they could take her into custody. That was true of more than half of Guantanamo Bay. I'm going to offer you $250,000 to snitch on this kid next to you. Say he was in Tora Bora in 2002. Are you going to do it? Yeah, you are. Come on, you'd do it for $50, wouldn't you? Anyway, this is what happened throughout the process of Guantanamo, and this is what happened to Aafia. But the thing that's unique about her is not just that she's the only woman who went through the rendition to torture program. You know, it should tell you something that there aren't any women who are in leadership positions in Al-Qaeda. That ought to have tipped off the CIA that they were wrong. It's not just that she was the only woman. By far the most shocking thing is that they abducted her children as well. Now, I'm a father. You don't have to be a parent to know what it would be like if someone abducted your children. And there were 3 kids, right? Now, during the abduction, and I know this happened because I've secretly recorded someone who took part in that. He didn't know we were recording him, but he told the whole story about how they took the children out of the car. They dropped the little 6-month-old, Suleiman, apparently on his head and killed him, but no one's had the decency to admit to that. So Aafia, today, when I talk to her, still doesn't know if he's dead or not. The other 2 kids, both US nationals, because they were born in this country. Now, that shouldn't make a difference, but you know what it does to Americans. They're American. The CIA took those children to Afghanistan from Karachi. And the 3-year-old Mariam was taken to Afghanistan by the CIA, where they forcibly adopted her into a white Christian American family on the well-known principle that it's better to be a white Christian American than to be a Pakistani Muslim of color. I mean, it's shocking, right? It's just disgusting. And she was there for 7 years, and the only reason she got out was President Hamid Karzai helped Fawzia get her out. And I've been in touch with old Hamid Karzai in Kabul, and he's told us what happened. So if the CIA wants to lie about what happened, the witness against them is the former president of Afghanistan. Then the other kid, Ahmed, age 6, US citizen, is almost even more shocking. They took this child all the way up to Kabul, and they put him in prison. They put him in a prison, and they said, henceforth, your name is Ihsan Ali, and if you ever say you're Ahmed, son of Aafia, we'll kill you. And he was there for 5 years. They then took, and I know where that is too, because the Red Cross, the ICRC, was kind enough to share their documents with me about where he was being held, so they can't deny that either. Then they took Aafia to Bagram Air Force Base, and Bagram is somewhere where an awful lot of my clients were held. But obviously the CIA's denied this too, but I went there. I have 11 witnesses who saw her in Bagram. We went there, we filmed it. It'll all be part of this Al Jazeera film, which is important, by the way, to get some backing for her. And we filmed where she was held. And for the first bit, they abused children in front of her. The CIA abused little children in front of her and told her those were her children. Can you imagine what's got into these people? Then they took her to another part of the prison where, close your ears, kids, but they raped her consecutively in this other prison. Unbelievably shocking that our government would do that. Now, they spent 5 years there. She did, and she was abused for 5 years. Then the CIA finally works out what we could have told them in the first place, which is Aafia had nothing to do with extremism. So they want to get rid of her. Now, this is the bit that the Pakistan government really doesn't like. But the Americans wanted to get rid of her, and we, as Americans, have used what we call a disposal program. The euphemisms of this are shocking. We wanted to dispose of Aafia. We didn't want her ever being seen again. And the reason for it was this, ironically, that Aafia Siddiqui had been stirring up support for her sister and her niece and her nephews, and had a 1 million-person march in Karachi. I don't know how many of you have a sister who would have a 1 million-person march for you, but she had done a fabulous job. Now, ironically, the problem with that is Aafia had become a real threat to the Musharraf regime, which was just clinging on in 2008. So they didn't want Aafia to come back to Pakistan. So they concocted the ISI. Yeah, you listen to me, ISI. I've got the goods on you, mate. Because I've got an ISI agent who's sworn an affidavit about what happened. I'm not telling you who he is, but he'll show up in court if you make us do it. The ISI concocted an assassination program where they had planned to blow up, to kill Aafia as a suicide bomber. Now, she wasn't going to be a suicide bomber, but she's not. But what they did was they put her in a bus with her son, who was so afraid he didn't say he was her son. Ihsan Ali, he said he was. Middle of July, in the middle of summer in Afghanistan, he was wearing a heavy coat with 4 big pockets full of fruit to make him look like a suicide bomber with a jacket on, right? And he's with Aafia, who's in a full chador, and so you can't see what she's got under that one of those blue dresses. But in that bus is an ISI agent, and I've got a picture of him. And, I love doing this stuff. I just love it when we track these people down. But I've been there 4 times to dig this stuff up, and we got a picture of the ISI guy. They ride in this bus to Ghazni together. I've been to Ghazni 3 times, and I stayed in a hotel that cost $4 in the middle of winter, and it really wasn't worth it. It was like being back in an English boarding school. It was horrible. But what we do for our clients, eh? So they took her in this bus down to Ghazni and told her if she sat outside a mosque, they would deliver her daughter Mariam back to her, and then she could take Mariam and her son back to Pakistan and live happily ever after. That was all a lie. What they'd done is 2 days before, and I've got this record, they called in a suicide bomber tip saying there was going to be a woman outside this mosque. But, the ISI is so incompetent that they didn't do it very well. So Aafia got there. She sat outside the mosque for 7 hours waiting for them to deliver her daughter. And in the meantime, people came up to her and spoke Farsi. She didn't speak Farsi, so they couldn't communicate with her. And she was just waiting there, and she'd had 5 years of torture, so she was totally catatonic. But there was a guy across the road called Mohammed Ajmal Mohammadi, who is one of the people I love most in Afghanistan. He was a tailor, and he'd done tailoring in Pakistan, so he spoke Urdu. After seeing this woman out there all that time, he went out and talked to her. And he said, it's getting dark, it's a war zone, you really ought to come and stay with my mother. And she said, no, I'm waiting for someone to deliver my daughter to me. Just at that moment, the Afghan National Police show up with their AK-47s, 40 of them, and they ring Aafia, and they're just going to shoot Aafia and her son, and then the headline of the paper in Pakistan is going to be, Aafia Siddiqui really was a terrible terrorist. Not only was she going to be a suicide bomber, but she got her own child killed as well. That was meant to be the headline. The only reason that wasn't the headline is because Mohammadi stood in front of the AK-47s and said, no, you got this all wrong. And what I particularly love about this, I love Mohammadi. He was so pissed off about what they were doing to this woman that the next day he gave up being a tailor and went and joined the Mujahideen, which just goes to show what all of our stupidity does. It just provokes people into being our enemies. Anyway, so they don't kill her. They take her to the Afghan National Police headquarters, and they ask her questions. They discover that the only crime she's committed is not having a visa to be in Afghanistan. And so they're going to let her go. But then the US military shows up. And the US military wants to see Aafia. And the Afghans, to their credit, say, no, you can't. So the US does what we do best, which is they bribe the police chief. And then they let the US up to see her. And I've been there. I've been where this is. There's a lovely guy who's now the police chief who, I was there just about 3 months ago, and we were sitting in the headquarters, and I could get my phone to work there. And so I was able to get these police people to send Aafia an email from Ghazni, and it was so cool. They sent these really nice messages. But what happened to Aafia is she's in this room behind a curtain, and she hears American voices, and she thinks, oh my goodness, I'm being taken back for more torture. So she peeks around the curtain, and one of the American soldiers sees her and says she's on the loose and shoots her twice in the stomach. And this is what she's in prison for here in America, because the officer who did that then discovers he's just shot an unarmed civilian woman, and he knows he's going to get prosecuted. So they all club together and they say that Aafia reached for a gun that they'd just apparently left lying on the ground and started shooting at them. And their proof of it is there are 2 holes up in the wall up here, and they say that's where the bullets went. Well, we've got a video now from earlier that day, and the 2 holes were already up there. That's where they hung pictures. There were no bullets. She never fired a gun. She was the victim of this, right? And yet they patch her up, she nearly died, and they brought her all the way back to the Southern District of New York, where the conviction rate, what do you think the conviction rate is in the SDNY? Sorry? Don't give me pretty high. Give me a figure. Not really high. What percentage? High 90s. 99.5% the conviction rate is there. Don't ever get put on trial in the SDNY. And she has no defense, right? Because her lawyers, they can't really investigate in Afghanistan in the middle of a war. But anyway, they don't. And the case goes to trial, and there are no witnesses for her. She's convicted of attempted murder, for which the normal punishment is 10 years. Now, she's innocent of that, but she would expect to get 10 years if she's convicted. So they give her 86 years, because this is the height of all our hatred of Muslims and terrorism and all this nonsense. And so then she gets sentenced to FMC Carswell. And you know what? I've been to pretty much every death row in America over the last 40 years. I've been to Guantanamo 42 times. FMC Carswell is the most disgusting prison I've ever been to. These people, you live here. It's your sworn duty to close that prison down. And I'm going to do it too. They really so pissed me off. We sued them now. And first, when I first talked to her, she told me how she'd been raped there twice and sexually abused on many, many occasions. And I wasn't sure how credible that was initially until you discover that 12 guards in that prison have been convicted of rape, including a Christian minister, for goodness sake. This place is rampant. It's got the highest sexual assault rate in the whole country of prisons last year. And Aafia's living there. She's been held in Admin Seg, the Administrative Segregation Unit, essentially in isolation, for 14 years straight. That's longer than any other woman in federal custody in America. 10,250 women, some of them on death row, and yet none of them have been punished the way that Aafia has been punished. And why is that? The reason it is because they have doctors there who think that she's making stuff up when she says that she was abducted and tortured by the Americans and that the Americans took her children and all of that. They think she's making that up for some political reason, so they don't treat her for the obvious post-traumatic stress disorder that she suffers from, Instead, they say she's contrary and she's not being compliant and all the rest of it. They won't let Imam Omar Suleiman in there. And they just denied it without any reason the other day, so we sued them on that again. They won't let a doctor in there. Where is our good doctor? Where are you? My expert who I was trying to get in there. Yeah. Sorry? Yeah, where is he? I don't know. Anyway, they won't let Bilal Paracha in there because, I don't know, he's a dubious character or whatever. This is just shocking what they're doing in that prison, and they're abusing her every day. And this is the woman we're talking about. Now, I'm going to tell you a bit later what we're going to do to get her out of there, and under no circumstances are we not going to prevail. But that's enough for me right now. Let me turn you over to my good friend, who they won't let him in either. He's a very dubious-looking character too, aren't you?
Thank you so much, Clive, for the details there. And Dr. Asif, we're looking forward to hearing from you. I know you have a personal story to share as well.
So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Before we can start, I know we are in masjid, but can we give a big round of applause to Clive? And before we can start thanking the masjid and thanking every volunteer, I would start by thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and then to Clive. Not only he have taken the case of Dr. Aafia, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala release her soon, but actually 87 is the number, Guantanamo Bay prisoners you took? 87, 85. This shows the commitment of Clive for the cause of social justice. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, Clive. And I hope that inshallah we all can witness that day when we'll see our sister, Dr. Aafia, also inshallah, biiznillah. First and foremost, after thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Clive, I would like to thank Valley Ranch Islamic Center for arranging and organizing this program and for all the volunteers. And this shows the courageous leadership you have, alhamdulillah, to take this initiative. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. I was asked to share the personal story with Dr. Aafia. So I stand in front of you today, not as a speaker, not as an imam, not as a sheikh, but rather as a person who have a deep personal connection with Dr. Aafia on many, many different instances. So first, I'm an American citizen, but I was born in Pakistan, Karachi, and my house was just a few miles away from the house of Dr. Aafia. And my early schooling was actually almost in the backyard of Dr. Aafia. It was so close to her house. But when I was in my college days, I heard in the media in Pakistan that Dr. Aafia was kidnapped. But I found about her greatness when I actually came here and joined Muslim community, that how great this woman is, subhanAllah. I'll just tell you a few stories. Before I came to DFW, I'm here for almost 1.5 years now. Before that, I was in Massachusetts. For almost 5 years, I was resident scholar of Worcester Islamic Center. Dr. Aafia Siddiqui completed her master's and PhD from MIT and Brandeis. So she was in Boston and Massachusetts in the 90s and the early 2000s. So when I was the resident scholar of Worcester community, this Worcester community have a sister mosque also, ISGW. This is the oldest community in that New England area from 1969. So they told me, when I was resident scholar there, that Dr. Aafia Siddiqui used to teach in the Sunday school on a voluntary basis, subhanAllah. Then all the causes of activism and philanthropy work in 90s in Massachusetts, they told me that Dr. Aafia was extremely active. And one personal story which hit my heart is that one brother, he wanted to stay anonymous, from Nebraska, he was studying there. He had the organization for helping the orphanage. So he wanted to raise funds nationally. He went to New England area in Massachusetts, but he could not reach his target. So someone told him in Massachusetts in 90s that if you want to raise funds here, you need to have this one activist sister, and if you have her in your team, you will definitely hit your goal. And I asked him, who was that sister? No surprises. Who was that sister? Dr. Aafia Siddiqui. And that happened. Dr. Aafia joined his team, and then eventually he was able to raise the funds, subhanAllah. The reason why I'm bringing this up is that to see the human side of Dr. Aafia. because most of us, we haven't met Dr. Aafia to see that how active she was in the community. She was a true activist, subhanallah. You know, Allah says, Al jaza'ul ihsan illa al-ihsan. The compensation of ihsan, good, is nothing but the good. The fact that we are here, even though we haven't met Dr. Aafia, is actually maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have placed us here to reward because of the good work which she have done a few decades ago, subhanallah. Recently, a few months ago, I texted Dr. Fawzia that I'm actually coming to Karachi, so I want to meet you and your family, and Dr. Aafia's family. And she was kind enough, very generous enough to host me and my family. So I visited her, and I met Dr. Fawzia. I met Clive before multiple times, but in this Karachi visit, I met Dr. Fawzia. I met the volunteers of the Free Aafia movement in her house. And I actually met Ahmad and Maryam, 2 kids of Dr. Aafia. MashaAllah, now he's Dr. Ahmad, and he's doing his residency, alhamdulillah. And the daughter of Dr. Aafia, Maryam, she is still studying medicine. And me and my wife, we were shocked when we saw Maryam. You know why? Because she looked exactly like Dr. Aafia, subhanallah. So we had a great dinner, and for almost 1 hour, Dr. Fawzia was narrating the story of Dr. Aafia, how she used to spend her time in America, then what happened, and you have already heard, so I don't want to repeat the story. But I just want to tell you, when listening to the story from Dr. Fawzia about what happened to Dr. Aafia, what was the environment of the family. Her mother was still alive. She passed away recently. So she was telling the story with the smiling face. But as courageous as Dr. Fawzia is, I can see that she's hiding her tears. And she's holding her tears. And when I listened to the story of her mom, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive her shortcomings, Ameen Ya Rab, it reminded me of the story of Jacob, Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam. And when I heard the story about Dr. Aafia, it reminded me of the story of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, Joseph. And because Prophet Yaqub, Prophet Jacob, had to face this difficult separation time from his beloved son. And actually, her mother used to say the same story every now and then, that just like Yusuf and Yaqub had to face this time, I'm also facing this time, subhanallah. And she passed away recently. And when I heard the story of Dr. Aafia, it reminded me of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. Just like Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, Joseph was kidnapped by his own brothers, and then he was sold in a different country, and then in a different country he was imprisoned for the things which he have never done. Exactly same thing you see in the case of Dr. Aafia. She was kidnapped by her own compatriots, people in Karachi. You just heard the story from Clive. Then she was sold first in Afghanistan, and now she is in Dallas. And the inhumane treatment she is facing, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for her and all of us. Ameen Ya Rab. But yet there is a hope and optimism, right? When you try to connect to the Quran, there is a hope and optimism. At the end of the story, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, Joseph came out of the prison, and there was a reunion between him and the family, right? So we really hope, we are really optimistic, inshallah. We are making consistent dua, inshallah, that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala release her so that, inshallah, there can be reunion with her and her family, inshallah ta'ala. Just final 1 or 2 things, inshallah, about what can we do, and what we have already heard, the injustices by both the governments from Clive. You know, what saddens me and what should sadden all of us is that we are considered here as the champions of human rights, right? We are humanizing other nations sometimes because of the lack of human rights. We are putting sanctions on other nations because of lack of human rights. And when you see this case, especially when Clive was narrating the story, I was thinking, where are those human rights we lecture all the time? Where are women's rights? Where are criminal rights? Is Dr. Aafia not a human? Is Dr. Aafia not a woman? We need to ask this to ourselves. You don't need to be an expert in political science or any rocket science is required. It's very crystal clear, the double standards of our human rights arrangement. And then on top of that, Dr. Aafia or the chaos in Gaza have not just exposed this human rights hypocrisy, rather it have even exposed all of us as an ummah. It have exposed that no matter what will happen to us, even if our daughters are being kidnapped, even if our kids are being butchered in Gaza, we won't act. We won't move. It's our inaction which is being exposed. It's time that many speeches, many conferences are being done. Now it's time to move. It's time to do something. And what can be done? I can just mention briefly, inshallah. Wallahi, nothing wrong with my belly. I'm just telling you this. First, what can be done? Please sign the petition for clemency if you haven't yet. Do we have the barcode to scan from cell phone?
It's going to go up in every.
Okay, inshallah. Just scan this barcode. Please sign the petition for clemency if you haven't already. Please take out your cell phones if the barcode is visible, inshallah. We'll be soon, very inshallah. Please sign this petition. Second, social media is a very powerful tool these days. Share the petition, which is gaining the momentum. Post, tweet, retweet the videos and photos and pictures coming from Clive's account, coming from Sheikh Umar's account, coming from Dr. Fawzia's account, coming from Sheikh Yasir's account. But we need to reshare and retweet so that we can increase the awareness. And the last is that the rally for Dr. Aafia, which is happening tomorrow. If you haven't attended already, even if you have attended, please come. Tomorrow is a grand rally here in Dallas. You know, in Dallas Muslim community, we have a double responsibility towards Dr. Aafia especially. Because Dr. Aafia is in prison just a few miles away where we are sitting right now. So apart from making dua for her, which should be our first effort, attend the rallies, sign the petition. I love the DFW community. Wallahi, I love the DFW community. But me and my wife, when we attended last rally for Dr. Aafia, it was just 150 to 200 people. We can do better than this. Wallahi, in Dallas, if we have a halal restaurant, it will be more than 150 people. Try to show up tomorrow with family, inshallah. Tell your kids about this journey so that eventually, inshallah, they will be part of this legacy, inshallah ta'ala. And wallahi, I just think that you will have a regret if you're not part of this in future. So don't allow yourself to have this regret in future. Be part of this, inshallah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the strength and unity to act on behalf of our sister, Dr. Aafia Siddiqui. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from all of us. Jazakumullahu khairan.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Arif.
It's up to you if you want to sit or you want.
Jazakallah khair. Again, thank you for sharing all the personal stories there and the details about how we can help, inshallah. With that, I'm going to, a couple of announcements around logistics. There is going to be a QR code that goes up that's for Q&A, and there is a QR code that will also go up that is for actions you need to take. The first QR code that's going to go up there is about Q&A, so scan that, and then inshallah get ready for asking questions. And there is a second QR code. This is the Q&A QR code, so I need everybody's phones up, scan that one inshallah, so you can ask Q&A. This will address the questions in the later section. So, now, inshallah, let's switch to the other. Okay, the other QR code will come up as I invite Clive at the very end. This is the other QR code, which is for action. We'll bring that back up, inshallah, in a few minutes. That said, I'm going to invite Dr. Yasir Qadi, Jazakallah khair, for joining us tonight. Inshallah, like we have all heard, we've heard the moving stories. Now the question, inshallah, that I have for Dr. Yasir Qadi that he can answer for us is, why should we all care? Why should every single one of you care?
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi wahda wa salatu wa salamu ala man la nabiyya ba'da ma ba'd. The fact of the matter is, myself and Ustad Asif are the fillers. The real hero today is Clive. We are here just to give support to our brother Clive, who has sacrificed so much, traveled around the world, really done what none of us could do. He is a top-notch, world-renowned lawyer. He has credentials and degrees that he doesn't need to be doing this. He has spent a lifetime in the top, most prestigious firms, and yet he is volunteering of his time. He is not getting paid what he should be getting paid. And it really puts all of us to shame that somebody is doing this, and here we are, and she's our sister, our community, our background. So I'm just a filler, and I know I speak on behalf of Ustad as well. We are both fillers for the real hero over here. So one more round of applause for Clive for all that he's been doing. MashaAllah. And I forgot to clarify, I am not that Sheikh Yasir. I know you guys are used to another Sheikh Yasir. I am the other Sheikh Yasir from the other side of town, in case you got confused. But an interesting anecdote, and I will get to the topic at hand, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala weaves our journeys together in ways we never ever realized. You do understand that our dear friend, your dear Sheikh Yasir and my dear colleague, he wasn't born and raised in this land. He was born and raised somewhere else, as you're aware. And 30 years ago, exactly 30 years ago, our Sheikh Yasir and yours truly were at a university called the University of Medina. Now you would think we all knew each other there. No, the university has 8,000 students. Actually at the time it had 5,000. But still, 5,000 students, the probability of you getting to know any one of them is very little, right? I don't know the majority of the students there. And of course, our dear Sheikh Yasir was coming from an Arab land, and I was coming from America. So there was no commonality. But it so happened, my best friend from England, a fellow Pakistani British who had also graduated from chemical engineering, I'm also a chemical engineer, he became my best friend, right? That best friend was roommates with Sheikh Yasir Burjas. And he told me, you have to meet this genius. He told me, you have to meet this genius. He is a very powerful talib al-ilm. He knows his stuff. He's the top of Kulliyat al-Sharia. And that's a very big deal because there's 5 colleges. I was in the College of Hadith and our Sheikh Yasir was in the College of Sharia. And College of Sharia was one of the larger colleges. And to come number 1 every single year and to graduate number 1, which our Sheikh Yasir did, is a very, very big deal. So my best friend said, you have to meet this Sheikh Yasir, same name as you, but he is top of the class, and kept on praising him. I said, khalas, arrange a meeting with him, right? And so in, what is the date today? November 2024. In August 1995, this is when it was, I remember vividly, I met with your Sheikh, and I met with him. We were both, no white hairs, all black beards back then, mashallah, full, the good old days, huh? In the Masjid al-Haram. And subhanallah, we were from different backgrounds, different ethnicities. He did not speak English back then. But for whatever reason, we clicked. And we became friends out of thousands of people. And we kept in touch, and I met him a number of times, even though we were in different colleges, until one day he saw me, he called me, and he goes, you know, I have some news for you. I said, what? He said, you know, my father, he is in America with a green card, and he's calling me to come. Should I come or not? I'm hesitant. Should I come to America or not? I said, we need to sit down. And I swear to you by Allah, we sat down in the Masjid al-Haram, right? And I said to him, it is fard ain on you to go. I kind of exaggerated like, but really, you have to go. The ummah needs you. But it's a dawla kafira and I don't speak English. I said, the people need you. SubhanAllah, long story short, he went to a small little town somewhere else, El Paso, Texas, for a long period of time. And then subhanAllah, qaddar Allah, we end up in the same city in Dallas, right? Look how it interweaves together, subhanAllah. But here's the irony. It's not just Sheikh Yasir that lives have intertwined together. It is such a qaddar Allah, we don't control our destinies. And you don't know who you interact with, how and what will happen. It is surreal to me to even think about. But our dear sister Aafia Siddiqui, I have interacted with her multiple times. And I have multiple stories with her as well. My first, she was from Houston, I'm Houstonian as well, as you're aware. And actually our families are also, you know, I'm not going to say close family friends, but we are family friends. Her mother and my mother, they knew each other. And family friends are there. We have mutual friends as well. But I got accepted to the University of Houston way before Yasir Burjas, right? So this is before, we're going back in time. Yasir Burjas is 1995. Aafia Siddiqui is 1991 with me, subhanAllah. So in 1991, I got accepted to the University of Houston. I got accepted in May, I got accepted, the letter came, and I had to go and do an orientation at the College of Engineering, because I got accepted in chemical engineering. And I was absolutely terrified. I had never been to the University of Houston. You can imagine I'm a teenager. I'm feeling very out of place. I'm taking the bus. I didn't have a car. We couldn't afford a car back then. I took the bus to the University of Houston, right? And I'm, seeing where the signs are, University of Houston, get off. University of Houston is a big campus. It's a massive campus. And I'm late for the meeting. The bus was late. I'm late. I'm worried. I don't know what to do. And I am really sweating. It's summer, Houston. I don't know what to do. You have to understand, most of our youth don't understand this point. In the 90s, it was very, very rare to see a hijabi on any American campus. It was very rare. Perhaps in whole campus, University of Houston, perhaps there were less than 10 hijabis in 1990-91. It wasn't common at all. We had many Muslim students from overseas, but they didn't usually, it was just a different world. People were awkward to wear, right? And I'm so worried, wondering, look at the time. And the whole campus, to me, there was no internet at 1990. There was no iPhone you pull up. The kids were going to think we're living in dinosaur age, right? There is no cell phone, nothing. And I have no clue how to get to engineering. And I'm wandering on campus and I see a hijabi lady far away. No idea who she is, but clearly she's a Muslimah. So I come up to her embarrassed because I'm a young man. And of course she's older than me. She's probably 7, 8 years older. But still it's just awkward. As they, sister, I'm so sorry to disturb you, but I'm new. And I guess you could see I'm flustered and sweating. I'm new to campus. I'm lost. And I have no idea where is the chemical engineering department, right? And I had no idea she was a student in engineering as well. Not only was she a student, she was about to graduate. I didn't know this, I found this out later on. And she had gotten accepted to MIT. In the 90s, a hijabi accepted at MIT. This was surreal. I didn't know this at the time. I didn't know who she was. And she just smiled at me. Brother, don't worry. I'll take you there. I said, no, just point me in their direction. She goes, no, don't worry. Wallahi, as Allah is my witness. Again, this shows you these small interactions. She saw the worriness. She saw the parishani on me completely, right? She literally calmed me down, walked with me, asked me my degree, don't worry, you'll take the easier department, this and that. She gave me some advice. She walked from the library all the way until the engineering department was there. She pointed, goes, okay, there is the engineering department. I said, thank you so much, sister. What's your name? She said, my name is Aafia. Jazakallah khair. No, it's not going to register any bell. Jazakallah khair, moved on. Later on, I find out that Sister Aafia is in fact, it was my first semester, so I didn't know any of this stuff, is in fact extremely active with the MSA, and she would be giving sisters halaqat in the MSA, and she would be everybody knew who she was. I didn't know who she was because I'm coming to campus for the first day, subhanAllah, right? And so subhanAllah, this is the reality of the world. And she, within a few months, she went to MIT, but there was one of the biggest conferences back then in 1991. There was a conference in which we invited Dr. Jamal Badawi. Now you guys, our youth, we're accustomed to, 5,000 people. We say, okay, that's a good conference. When you go to ISNA, 10, 15,000 people. Again, you guys don't understand how it was in 1990. In 1990, if you had 100 people in Houston, this would be a big conference, right? I attended ICNA. I attended ICNA as my father took me there as a teenager. ICNA, how many people attend ICNA? How many people these days? Give me a number. 20,000, roughly, right? However much it is. I remember clearly, I attended ICNA in 1990, I attended ICNA, and there were 1,270 people. And I remember the number because my jaw dropped. 1,200 Muslims. And I remember it was Syracuse, New York, right? These memories stay with you. Because I had never seen 1,000 Muslims. 1,200 Muslims, and they had a youth conference. I remember, these are formative years for me, right? A youth conference where 70 youth my age, and I'm like, wow, 70 teenagers. Again, 70, you guys have it in Valley Ranch. Of course, Epic is more, but that's khair, it is what it is. No worry. Guys, I have to put it in, sorry. Sorry, guys, okay. So it's like, these are very phenomenal figures. So in ICNA, we have a rivalry. We say, Clive doesn't know this. It's a healthy rivalry. It's a brotherly rivalry. Because they have one Sheikh Yasir, we have the other Sheikh Yasir. So we have to make sure we know the distinction here. So we had a conference in Houston, Texas, right? The biggest conference for so many years, 1991. Jamal Badawi came down. He was the star of the time. We invited the most famous basketball player of 1991. Who knows his name? How do you know his name? I'm genuinely impressed. How do you know his name? You watch basketball, mashallah. Okay, alhamdulillah. Our little brother here actually knows the name. Hakeem Olajuwon, right? That tall, 8 foot tall, 7 foot 7 tall. He came and attended, right? Hakeem Olajuwon was there. Jamal Badawi is there, right? And in that, along with Jamal Badawi, there is no Yasir Qadhi as a speaker. I'm just a teenager. Who do you think is speaking with Jamal Badawi? Do we have video footage? Can we show the video footage of that? Do we have it? I asked them to put it on.
Sophomore at MIT, inshallah. She's doing her major is in genetics, and she'll be leaving day after tomorrow. Sister Aafia is going to be involved in MSA at MIT.
Play this.
Already
Don't forward now.
And she's already started work. Alhamdulillah. Please, Sister Aafia.
Okay, so this is my friend Haris Quddus. He's introducing Aafia Siddiqui. 1991, Jamal Badawi is in the audience, Hakeem Olajuwon is in the audience. I have never seen a sister speak until now time, right?
Brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, now if you can forward.
It is my spread all the way from Africa to India and Spain, 3 continents. Why is it, I will ask you, that today we are the 3rd world? We have lost the respect and dignity we enjoyed. We are apologetic.
Now, pause here. You can't see this. You see Hakeem Olajuwon in the front? You have to see him, 7 foot tall, right? You cannot see, but the very back, you can pause when you go home. You will see a teenager with funky hair, right? Hair going down like a movie star. Like, that's me in the back over there, okay? I kid you not, I'm sitting there in the background, okay? I had never in my life, up until that point in time, heard any female speaker in English. She was the first female speaker I had ever heard up until that point in time in English, and I was just jaw-struck, like eloquence, confidence. Go listen to that talk. Now, pause here. I know that when you compare to other later speakers, you might say, okay, she seems a little bit. You have to understand it's 1991. You have to understand there's nobody on the scene, nobody. And for her to give that Islam gives honor to women, and Islam this and Islam that, and we need to do this, and why is our ummah suffering the way that it is? For me as a teenager to hear a sister exude such knowledge, such confidence. I remember Jamal Badawi was smiling and clapping, and he's listening to Aafia Siddiqui. Can you imagine, the impressions it has on this young formative mind? So this is who Aafia Siddiqui is. Confident speaker, dynamic, being active across Houston. And then shortly after this, because this is the summer of 1991, shortly after this she then moves on to MIT. And of course I hear about, mashallah, finishing a PhD. We have mutual friends, and so you get the news, mashallah, I heard she got married, she had kids. And then, next thing I know, literally like, a few years of absence, next thing I know, front page news, MIT, Al-Qaeda terrorist. I said, who is this? I'm like, what? Aafia Siddiqui? What? Like literally, the person the person you've interacted with, that lady who's going to smile and calm down a teenager she doesn't know and walk with him from the library all the way to engineering and then say, there's the engineering, go on, may Allah make it easier for you. Now this is not right. It's not adding up. It's not possible that this person that we've interacted with, we're family friends, we have so many mutual friends, we know her. She's not a terrorist. She's not some, Al-Qaeda bomb lady or whatever it was. And subhanAllah, the story that they spun, wallahi, and you can ask my wife this, I said, I don't know the story, but I know this is not true. I don't know what happened. I don't know how she ended up in Afghanistan. I don't know what is there, but I know this is not true, what I'm reading over here. There's something that's not adding up. And slowly but surely, with the efforts of Clive and others, subhanAllah, we now have a much more clear picture of what happened. The sad, sad reality. Our people, hamari qawm, our Prime Minister and President, our guy, sold her for a paltry sum. A'udhu billah. He sold her for a small, measly profit that he pocketed. He concocted a story so that he could get some money. He literally created a fabrication so that some money could come into his pocket and Allah will be here. Wallahi, we will make dua against that and we will ask Allah to show us the result. How can we not make dua against such a person who has caused all of this? He concocted a story in that post 9/11 world. Our government, I'm not exonerating them at all, but at that time they were going through a craze. They had no idea what is what. And when the Prime Minister, the President is saying that this is a terrorist lady, khalas, they went into full mode. And they did their PR, they did their spin, they did what they did. When they found out she's innocent, it is too late to withdraw innocently. By the time they find out she's actually innocent, too much has happened and her son has died. What are you going to do now? You heard from Clive exactly. They attempted to, sanitize. They attempted to get their hands clean and blame a third party. But Allah intervened miraculously. If Allah Azza wa Jalla had not intervened, we would never have had even an alive Sister Aafia right now. If Allah had not intervened with that brave tailor who stood with his life, that's what you call courage. One person can change the course of history. That's what we learn throughout over and over again. One person can literally change the course of history. He wasn't a part of the plan. They plotted and planned, and Allah planned, and Allah's plan will always be victorious. He was not a part of the scheme, and yet an innocent, pure tailor, seeing what's going on, literally stands and protects our sister. And the guards couldn't kill him without a bigger story, and so they decided to arrest. One thing leads to another. And no doubt we are in pain. No doubt there's so much tragedy and trauma, but not all hope is lost. And if anything, the events of what happened in Syria this week, the events of what happened, if anybody knows the reality of that land, if anybody knows that the tyranny that took place there and the hold that that regime had over its people, wallahi, what we are seeing now is nothing less than a miracle. It is a miracle of miracles. Nobody could have predicted what we are seeing now. But as we say, Allah plans and they plan, and Allah's plan will always be supreme. So my plea to all of you, following what our brother Clive said, what our Ustad Asif said, my plea to all of you, don't lose hope. I understand we are up against giants, but we have to realize these giants are nothing when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَكَرُوا وَمَكَرَ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. Allah's plan will always be effective. All Allah wants from us is we try, we do whatever we can. Yes, we believe in miracles. Without a doubt, we believe in miracles. Everything around us happening is a miracle. And Allah knows what small thing we do might become a potential miracle. Our job is just to put in the effort. Our job is just to knock on doors, to send the petition, to make dua, to stand up at protest. That's all we can do. Our job is to try our best from behind the scenes. And Allah knows how and when and where a door is going to be opened up. But that's up to Allah. We simply keep on trying and putting our effort in. So the bottom line, brothers and sisters, wallahi, it is a travesty of justice. This is one of the most, if not the most painful incidents in the last 25 years pertaining to our global community, especially because it is such blatant dhulm, and the state of our sister and her mental state right now, and her own children, and the innocent child that has been killed. A'udhu billah, la hawla la quwwata illa billah. Not all hope is lost if we collectively come together. And wallahi, we know this, subhanallah, it's all about PR in the end of the day. What these people care about is PR. What these people care about is funding for their campaigns and whatnot. If we could come together with an effective mechanism, and if we could mobilize the millions of people, if we could knock on the right doors, if we could get the right politicians from overseas to want to intervene, subhanallah, one phone call could literally change the entire situation. We don't know where that phone call will come from. Our job is to continue trying. And I want to conclude on a simple verse in the Quran that is a lesson for all of us. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the story of the Bani Israel who had created a tactic to fish on one day, on the day of Sabbath. You know the story, right? The story is, not quite relevant, but one phrase is relevant. There's a small group of people, who would be advising the larger city, don't do this, it's wrong. One of the persons said to this righteous group, why are you wasting your time with a group that's never going to listen to you? Why are you wasting your time? You know they're not going to change. What did they say? Allah says in the Quran, قَالُوا مَعْذِرَةً إِلَىٰ رَبِّكُمْ وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. Two things. This should be our motto. This should be our philosophy. قَالُوا مَعْذِرَةً إِلَىٰ رَبِّكُمْ وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. Number one, we have to do this to excuse ourselves in front of Allah on the Day of Judgment. We did something. We have to, even if the qawm never listens, even if they continue to break the Sabbath, even if they flout the law, even if our sister remains locked until I die and she dies, we still have to do what we have to do, so that on the day of judgment, ma'ziratan ila rabbikum, Ya Allah, I tried. Ya Allah, I tried. It's a ma'zira, it's an excuse in front of Allah that we actually cared. We wanted to do something. So be selfish in this regard and say, you know, the reason I'm doing this, I need to excuse myself in front of Allah and say, Ya Allah, I tried. Ma'ziratan ila rabbikum. And then point number 2, وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. Why do you think that no change can ever occur? Maybe they will change. Maybe something will happen. وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. Maybe they will come back to the correct path and be righteous and pious. How do you predict the future and know that this change will never happen? Subhanallah, brothers and sisters, this country, it has a lot of good, and yes, it has a lot of bad as well. And its history shows sometimes change does happen for the positive, for the morally right reasons, not because it's politically expedient, not because money is on the side. No, for the actual moral right reasons. So many incidents in the last 50 years of this country. Civil rights is the best example. Politicians didn't want civil rights to happen. The larger population was racist to the core. They're still racist to the core. They don't want civil rights to happen. You have to understand, civil rights only happened because really morality and truth was on the side of the oppressed, and people knew this, and they stood up and they campaigned and they lobbied until finally it was so obvious that you cannot allow this to happen. People literally were killed. People went to riots. You've all seen the hoses that took place, the dogs that were sent against them. Civil rights is a classic example of a small group of dedicated people with the truth on their side changing the course of history, even if the politicians, even if the elites, even if the larger country does not want it. And it's not just civil rights as well. The Vietnam War is another example. The government, as you're all aware, was entrenched in Vietnam. The Pentagon, the military-industrial complex, all of the elites, they wanted that to happen. But once again, students stood up. Berkeley, across the country, students stood up and said, no, this war is unethical, this war is illegal, you're not going to send us there. And again, the entire country stood up in protest until finally, even our government had to acknowledge and withdraw from Vietnam. It is possible when committed and dedicated groups of people come together for the right reason, and wallahi, we have the right reason. So, brothers and sisters, bottom line, do not lose hope. Do not lose hope. Our job is to continue to try whatever the tactics are. And our brother Clive has told us various tactics we can do: signing the petition, showing up for the protests and rallies. Inshallah, those of us that have connections with Pakistan, if we're able to get Pakistani pressure on this government, if we can get the Senate and the Congress and the Prime Ministers over there to intervene and to literally try to get involved and ask for clemency. Official letters are already there, but if we can put more pressure, one phone call can potentially change easily. Just to have her extradited back to her home country, put her under house arrest, no problem, get her back home at least, be with her family. There's reasonable things that can happen if we raise the hue and cry, if we put the pressure on, then insha'Allah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will use those efforts to show us miracles. Our job, ma'ziratan ila rabbikum wa la'allahum yarji'un. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala show us the victory of our sister Aafia Siddiqui as He showed us the victory of our brothers and sisters in Sham. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow our sister to be reunited with her family and her children. May Allah grant her sabr and ikhlas and tawfiq. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to do khidmah to her and to all of our oppressed. Wa jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair to Sheikh Yasir for that rousing talk and for helping us all see that we have a role to play, inshallah. That said, I'm going to invite back our esteemed guest Clive to walk us through some of the things that are in progress where we can help. So this is the moment, this is the thing that I talked about at the beginning. We all should feel compelled at this moment to do something. What is that something? Clive is going to walk us through this. And there's going to be a QR code that goes up there. That will be the QR code for action that Clive is going to walk us through.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay, jolly good. All right, fine. Let me follow up that very rousing thing by saying, while you were talking, we were whispering, me and Asif, and he said there was such a big which is the greatest mosque, this one or your one? And I'm very pleased that tonight you're all together, because we all need to be together on this, and thank you for that. Also, I talked today to Aafia about that speech she gave, because I've been using that picture of her in the yellow top, because it's a really nice picture. And I'd watched that thing, and she did it all without notes, right? And she's just going on and on. It was absolutely, wonderful, wonderful thing to see. It's so funny to hear you say that. Now, let's talk about what you can do. First, you lot, you young people, stop looking at your phone over there. This is the only thing I have to disagree. I've never worked for a firm. I've always worked for charity throughout my life. And I'm talking to you, mate. You lot, what we want before you leave today is that you swear on something, I don't really mind what, that you're going to devote the next 50 years to doing human rights work for the people who most need it. I see you're nodding, so we'll just get that. Look, this is what we want in the end, right? I mean, you can all do this. And again, the other thing I have to deeply disagree with you on is that what I'm doing is so difficult. I love it. There is nothing that could possibly give you more pleasure than to go to the darkest prisons of the world where the people are most downtrodden and to help those people. There is nothing better that you can do in life. So it's not, I love doing it. I wouldn't do anything else. I think the day should be 72 hours long, because 24 hours is just not enough. Now, what can we do? I talked to Aafia today about the little things. They seem little, but they're really important. The first is writing letters to Aafia. I started doing this some months ago, getting everyone to write letters to her that you send to our lettersforaafia@gmail.com. That's letters and then the number 4afia@gmail.com. That you send, they come to me, and then I put them in a legal mail to her, because they can't stop that, and she gets them, and we send her 100 pages every couple of weeks. And they got to be letters, not pitying her, she doesn't need to be pitied, but talking to her about how she inspires you. Because I talked to her about that today, and she was saying, I love getting those letters, and when people are tormenting me in prison, I read the letters out to them. And the only problem, she said, with it is that maybe I'll get arrogant, that there's all these people saying these nice things about me. And I say, no, that's not what it's about. What it's about is what it's always about for the people I represent, which is you're in a dark, dark, terrible place, and you turn your pain into the possibility of doing something good. And that's what Aafia is doing. And this is what I talked to her about today, is that even though you're suffering in this prison, you are doing so much more good for people around the world than 99% of the folk who think they're free. And the way you can help her on that is to write letters to us. So that's the first thing you've got to do. The second thing is, you have to come to the demonstration, because she can hear you. When we're outside FMC Carswell and you're making a big noise, she can hear you. And she knows it's for her. And so do all the guards. And the guards treat her with a bit more respect when that happens. And she feels that, your Ummah is with her, as opposed to having forgotten her. When I first saw her 2 years ago, she thought everyone had forgotten her. And it's fabulous that she now knows that's not true. Now, the next thing you can do is obviously to follow all the things on that QR code, sign the petition, write letters to the pardon attorney and to Biden. The pardon attorney has got 250,000 emails in the last few weeks. It's clogged up our entire email system. And the one thing she said to us, she wasn't able to meet with us when I was in Washington last week, because they're not allowed to do that. But she did send a message saying, "You've got my attention," because 250,000 people sent letters. Now, I want that to be 500,000 before the end of a couple of weeks. So you need to all do that, and you need to get everyone you know to do that. The number of signatures on that petition is not yet up to 500,000. It should be. You've got to send that to everyone you know and get them to sign that petition also. Then there are other things. You do know people. You know, everyone knows people. We need you to contact everyone you know who can contact your congressperson or to your senator. Don't waste your time in Texas with the senators. But with most places you can do this with your congressperson. Get them to call the White House and say, you've got to take this seriously. Because that is what, to what the extent that democracy means anything, it means that you're talking to the people who you elect. And it really makes a difference. I spent the last 10 days in Washington. I talked to 66 senators, congressmen, and congresswomen, and their staffers. And they all did that because of you lot, right? Because they want your votes. Now, I don't care why they do that. I just want their help to get Aafia out of there. So make sure your voice is heard. Please make sure your voice is heard. Then the next thing you can do is you can help us. You're going to know people, right? There are people here in Texas who know about Aafia. I didn't even know what he knew until today. You know what you're going to have to do? I'm afraid I'm going to have to make you swear to do this. Are you going to agree to give an interview with Al Jazeera about your personal recollections of Aafia?
Of course I will. It's the least I can do.
There you go. That's amazing. I just picked up a fabulous witness for Aafia, and I didn't even know he was here. This is amazing. It's so good. There are going to be other people in your community who also know about Aafia. They may know about CIA agents. They may know about the people who are involved in all of this. You need to talk about this to everyone you know and find people who can help. And you need to let me know so I can go interview them or make them go on television and get really feisty on TV. He'll make great TV, won't he? Then, look, there's so many other things you can do. Look, I do this for nothing because my mother told me I had to. But there are a lot of expenses involved in this. We've had to fly all over the world and get doctors to come all over the world and whatever. So, you can certainly help support it financially. Anyone can do that. I'm always very grateful for that. And then you do need to pray for her as well. She really needs that. Now, then I've got to answer all your questions from her children. Have Dr. Aafia's children had the opportunity to be approved for a visit of Aafia in prison? Her children are American citizens. They don't have to get visas and stuff. They can just come here anytime they like, but they won't. And the reason they won't is these children are so traumatized. These poor kids, I've met them several times, and they're terrified of this country. What does this say about the United States? I've been talking to their Congress people and senators. They were born in Massachusetts. We identified, obviously, both of their senators. I talked to Senator Warren's people. We identified their Congress people. Because I want them invited officially to come to this country, because right now they're afraid to come here, and that's awful. They're also afraid to be public about this because of the threats that have been made against them and their family, not by the US, actually, but by the ISI. And those people need to get off it. Really, the ISI needs to learn a lesson that that's not civilized. What's the next question? As a lawyer, in your opinion, have we exhausted every avenue via the judicial system? Heck no. God, I haven't even begun yet. I mean, we're doing the clemency thing now, and we have a real chance. And, we've spent the last 2 weeks on it in Washington and here. But Fawzia and I are going to come back in January. And I think we have a very realistic chance of getting clemency and of getting Aafia to Qatar. I don't want her to go to Pakistan. No, I don't want her to go there. I don't want her in that den of iniquity with all those ISI people. She needs to be in a hospital, and she needs to be in Qatar. And I've met with the Qatari government 2 or 3 times on this, and I got some very good news yesterday. I think it's true to say that they're going to welcome her. All they got to do is give her a visa, because the nice people who support Aafia can pay for her medical care. And her sister, obviously, Fawzia, who is a Harvard-educated neurologist, can oversee it. So I think she's going to be okay going there. And all we got to do is to get Biden to do for her what he did for his son. Now, Ahmed, Aafia's son, wrote to President Biden, and I delivered that letter, where he said, I'm glad you pardoned your son, because what father wouldn't do that? And I think the criticisms of him is a bit mad, frankly. But Ahmed went on to say, now you've got to do it for my mother. And that's what we hope will happen. I think it will. But if not, I haven't filed the litigation yet in New York because you don't want to have challenges to the conviction pending when you're doing clemency. But if we don't get clemency by January the 20th, I've got an agreement with the Pakistan government that I won't publish all the stuff I know and the names I know as long as they get a clemency. But if they don't get a clemency, then the gloves come off, right? And we go before this judge. We go before, the judge in New York is a guy called Judge Berman. He's 80, he's a liberal Jewish guy. I think he's going to be really angry when he learns that he was lied to throughout this trial. And I think he's going to order the CIA into court, and they're not going to like that. So yeah, we're going to go to court, but we're already in court. I had a hearing this morning, well at midnight, just after midnight this morning, in the Islamabad High Court. I love that judge there. He orders the government in Pakistan to do anything I ask him. I really adore that guy. And so I had him order the Pakistan Ministry of Foreign Affairs to deliver the letters to the head of the military that the head of the military refused to read, which is great. Where, you know, we've suggested they swap Aafia for Shakil Afridi, the guy who helped America murder bin Laden, because the Americans want him and the Pakistanis don't want to give him up. So we got all that litigation going on there. We've sued them in the Northern District of Texas. Anyone, you know, you all live here. This is your neck of the woods, not mine. We could do with some help on that in terms of the litigation here, because we're going to close that prison down because they've so angered me. Okay, why would Biden pardon Aafia after all that his and his administration did to support the genocide in Gaza? That's exactly the reason why, right? Our pitch to President Biden is, you have so messed up your relationship with the whole world of Islam that you got to start repairing it. And there's something you can do right here, right now, that costs you absolutely nothing. It means America won't have to carry on wasting money paying for her here. It'll get you lots of kudos from the people who care about Aafia, so just let it go. That's why he needs to do it. But he also needs to do it because whatever else you think about him, he is a sincere religious Catholic person who's lost 2 of his own children. And so we've got some people who are getting to him to just get him to hear the story of Aafia, where he can empathize with what's happened to her. And, you know, if we can get to him, he will do this because it costs him nothing. And no matter what you think about Gaza and him, he is still a human being, just about. Then there's Anonymous. Amnesty International released a public statement before her trial saying they had concerns about the integrity of the proceedings and said they'd be observing it, but they didn't release any statements. Have you worked or engaged with groups like Amnesty to further strengthen your case, and so forth? Yeah, of course. I've worked with them for years. Now, you know, there are different strokes for different folks. I think Amnesty is a very middle-of-the-road, middle-class white organization. That's fine. We need their help. IGNA has been fabulous. IGNA, there were 50,000 people at the conference I went to in Baltimore with Fauzia. We want all of those people as allies, and we need more of the people who are not from the Muslim community. You people are great. You're my people, let's face it. But we need some of those people who are not from the Muslim world. And one of the things that I've really liked is, without soliciting it, I've got letters of support from the Christian ministers in Pakistan, from the Sikh people in Pakistan, all these people who are willing to come forward for Aafia who are not Muslim. Now that's great. You know, you're the easy crowd, but I'm really pleased that we have their help too. Okay, any thoughts on a documentary? There may be no better way to get the story out. They're right here somewhere. They've been filming you people, so of course I have thoughts. Where does her ex-husband live? Maybe he deserves a visit. No, don't do that. I'd like to see him. I'd like to talk to him. I'm not going to kneecap him. But I really think that guy, we've always got to think about what people's mitigation is, right? Every time someone behaves really badly, it's because they're weak and insecure. And that's the truth. Every time someone acts the right way, it's because they're confident and they're not weak and insecure. That goes for the Ku Klux Klan like it goes for everyone else. Aafia Siddiqui is not weak and insecure, so she doesn't go around making up stories about her ex-husband. Her ex-husband is weak and insecure. We have to feel sorry for him, even if he did something absolutely awful. I think that's the list. But if there's anything else, I'm glad to answer it.
Thank you so much. All right, thank you so much, Clive, Dr. Asif, Dr. Yasir Khadi, Jazakumullahu khairan for all of you for being here and sharing both the story as well as what's our duty and what's incumbent upon all of us. Before everybody starts leaving, I need everybody to just stay for a minute, just for one minute, inshallah. I need everybody to take out their phone. Can we get the QR code back up there? For the AV team. I need everybody to scan that QR code. Every single person in this room, like I said, you should feel compelled. It's up there now. You should feel compelled to scan that QR code. Please, I need everybody. I don't see everybody's phone out. So please get your phone out and scan that QR code now. Right? Everybody, every single person in this room, number one, has to scan that QR code and do the bare minimum. Again, I'm not seeing everybody do it, so do it now. I'm going to wait. Need to see everybody scan that QR code, inshallah. Do it so you can actually take action. That's the reason you're here. That's number one. Number two, tomorrow there is going to be a rally. Like Clive said, it's important for all of you to be there, for all of us to be there. So come there with the families. If this crowd, if this shows up tomorrow, this will be the largest rally that Dr. Aafia has had. So I want to remind you, inshallah, to do that. With that, again, Jazakumullahu khairan to our speakers, and Jazakumullahu khairan to all of you for coming and spending the night here. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.